I'm grateful that we can be here together tonight. It can be such a temptation during this Holy Week to go from Sunday to Sunday and skip Friday. But friends, there is no Sunday without Friday. And so I'm glad you've come. Hope you caught the third verse of what our choir just sang. See from his head, his hands, his feet, sorrow and love flow mingled down. Did e'er such love and sorrow meet, or thorns compose so rich a crown? This Friday, Good Friday, is where sorrow and love meet. We have our sorrow stories. If we don't, we will. We have our sorrow stories. And I have a new one this week that I didn't know that I had. My grandmother was a strong, humble, loving lady. She'd been through it, through the Great Depression, 9 children and everything that came with that. Lost a child in childbirth. She was strong and also knew how to give out a hug. I remember that so well, even as a little child. Well, my mom this week gave me a copy of a letter that my grandmother started to write but never finished on the day she died in 1965. It stops mid-sentence. This is a part of what she wrote. I do get terrible lonesome at times and find living alone is not the most pleasant way to live. I've been relieved of the attack of edema, but now I'm bothered with the chest pains. They come on at any time and last from 1 hour to sometimes 2, 3, even 5 hours. I take the nitroglycerin tablets, I'll get relief for a short time, then the pain comes back. I have these attacks every day. Sometimes I'll have 3 or 4 in a 24-hour period. I never know when one is coming on until I get that searing pain around my heart, down my left arm, and across my chest. I usually sit on one of the dining chairs and up to the table where I can lean over and rest my head on my arms. I've been sad about that all week. Thinking about this grandmother who showed me love, lonely, in pain, and realizing that today she would have had so many options available to her for treatment. We have our sorrow stories. And sorrow follows our losses, doesn't it? The loss of a grandparent, loss of a parent, loss of a spouse, a child, a brother or sister, coworker, friend. It could be the loss of a friendship, a relationship. It could be the loss of a place where we had purpose or meaning. And of course, very few, if any, of our sorrow stories are more painful, more sorrowful than when there's a death. Well, tonight, we are face to face with the great sorrow story. We encounter the Son of God, the good and loving Son of God, who is beaten, tortured, scorned, and executed. What was done on this Friday grew out of the height of human arrogance and lust for power and fear. What a profoundly sorrowful outcome of misdirected motives and power and sin. And we'll see it as our passages are read tonight. Jesus is scorned like a criminal, the mocking of the crowd, his mother standing at the cross, beholding what is happening to her son, women who had followed, disciples who had followed, even a possible sense of forsakenness from his own father. And we'll see the depth of his aloneness as we watch him die on a cross, and the light goes out. Well, this is the sorrow story. And if it doesn't break our hearts, I'm not sure we get it. But we also have our love stories, at least I hope we do. I have grandchildren who love me, and I don't totally get it, but they love me. And they love snuggling up on my lap while I read to them. I think you're loved when others tease you. And my grandkids tease me. And they like to sneak into my favorite chair when I'm out of the room, knowing that when I come back, they're going to get a reaction from me. And so usually I have learned I just go and sit right on top of them. And as we laugh together, it's a laughter that's full of love. Well, I have my own list of love stories, parents who prayed for me every day, and I think they still do. A wife who loves me beyond what I can understand. My kids, friends, colleagues. For you, it may be any of a number of those things, or maybe a neighbor or a caregiver. And I hope you have lots of those love stories in your life. They're wonderful gifts. Well, just as this Friday confronts us with the great sorrow story, it also reveals the great love story. This is the one who told the leper, "Of course I want to touch you, be clean." And he did, and he was. He was clean and life was new. It's love. This is the one who stood up for a woman dragged into the public square, humiliated and her sin on display. And it all ended as Jesus looked into her eyes and said, "Is there no one left to condemn you? Neither do I." Love. It's the one who said simply, "Let the children come." It's love. And in these and in so many other ways, this is the one who is love in the deepest possible way. And we'll see that love from the cross itself in our readings tonight. "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. Today, you will be with me in paradise." Entrusting his mother and a disciple to one another's care as he hung on the cross. And then faithful to the finish to what he came to do. It's love. So this is the place where sorrow and love meet. And if Jesus was who we believe him to be, we discover that he takes us to a wholly different dimension of love, the love that leads us to this very unlikely place, the cross. This is the most sorrowful of all stories. It's the destruction of God's greatest good, at least at first glance. It's the putting to death of God's own Son. But in that, it also is the embodiment of love at its very deepest. The power and mystery of the love that sacrificed for us when we didn't deserve it. The love that truly changes everything. Friends, I'm going to suggest to you that we miss it if we simply sing hosannas on Palm Sunday and then celebrate the resurrection triumphantly on Easter Sunday. We miss it. If we don't stop for Friday, we miss it. You've got to stop for Friday. Some of you will know of Tony Campolo. He was born and raised in Philadelphia. He only needs to speak one sentence and you know he's a Philly guy. He's a sociologist, author, speaker, and he has really found a home in the African American church in Philadelphia. He loves the black church. And he tells this story. One day the church was having a series of preachers. They kind of lined them up and they all had a chance to preach. And it's not all that spiritual to admit it, but it kind of became a competition. And he went, it was his turn. And he'll tell you, I've heard him say, "I was good." I was good. And very full of himself, he went and took his seat next to the seasoned old black pastor who was up next. And the older pastor, he was sort of waiting for some affirmation over his sermon. Old pastor looked over at him and said, "Well, that was good." He paused and then he said, "But son, watch this." Now, some of you may have heard the story, but that pastor got up and he started in. "It's Friday, but Sunday's a coming. It's Friday, but Sunday's a coming." And he'd fill in a bit of what it meant for it to be Friday. It's Friday, but Sunday's a coming. The brokenness around them. It's Friday, but Sunday's a coming. The need for justice and love in their community. It's Friday, but Sunday's a coming. And I can't do this justice because I'm a Presbyterian preacher. But he went on and it built, "It's Friday and Sunday's a coming." Slam dunk on the competition. My friends, it's Friday. Sunday's a-coming. But today, it's still Friday. Don't miss it. This is the place where sorrow and love meet in the most profound way possible. And so as we participate in our service tonight, I simply invite you to bring that lens as we continue to hear the Friday story. Amen.